Also, I find it quite imitating talking here after first a guy who has a lot of money and second girls who build a Hyperloop. I have neither money nor a Hyperloop, and I'm really not sure what I should tell you. But I want to speak about unsafe at any speed. And just a very brief background on Cliqz, and it's the only one that is about Cliqz. We are Munich-based, a small startup. We are majority funded by Hubert Burda Media, which is nice because this is how we have some money. Never enough. I don't trust the VC. It's never enough money, but I actually agree. Always get as much money as you can get. And more important to me is the right hand of the slide. We consider ourselves as a data company. We do build browsers and search, which is a bit old-fashioned in the smartphone age, and especially in an age where Google, Chrome, Firefox have basically won this market, I guess. But we do strongly believe that there is an Internet 1.1 that is a bit better, and this is what we want to build. Browser and search is the main outlet that we use, but the core of what we do is backend and data-driven, and so you will see a lot about data today. And the first data point is this nice car. It was built well before most of you probably have been born or thought of. It's a Corvair, it's a 1960 car, and it's basically the car you wanted to have in the 1960s. It had everything that you really wanted. It had a really strong motor. It was rear-driven. It was very fancy chromium, and it has the special feature of laying into the curve, which was really nice. It was the car that guaranteed you to get laid. And it was a highly successful car. I mean, it's exactly what every market research was telling. This is what people want. Fast, chrome, comfortable. Except it had one tiny, tiny problem. And that was published in a book, 1964, by Ralph Nader. The car was basically unsafe at any speed. Because what the car didn't have were a couple of things. First of all, the brakes didn't even remotely match the engine. Then the chromium was basically a guaranteed death in the car, because if it broke, it basically was hitting you like a knife. Also, it was designed in the front to definitely kill every pedestrian that it would hit. And last not least, for the laying in the curve, it required different pressure in the tires in the front versus the back, which was written down in some manual, but nobody really followed. And this is why you see this car actually most of the time in a picture like this. They are really expensive now because there's literally no car left that is not broken. Now, I wanted to talk about internet, not about cars, because I actually don't even own a car. But the interesting thing is, this book basically started a trend, and it wouldn't have been if the industry wouldn't have reacted like industry reacts. So I think Ralph Nader sold like 600 books. So literally nobody really knew about it. And Chevrolet was already about to fix all the problems with the car. Except if you have a multi-billion company, you think, oh, damn, my bonus is in real danger. Let me hire a private investigator to find some dirt about Ralph Nader, because just to make sure nobody really trusts him. And then the story about the private investigator went public, and then I think he sold like 1.5 million books. The car was eventually stopped. And the more interesting thing about it is, this book actually started the end of an era. It is actually the end of Detroit. Because what happened is, suddenly, consumers started to ask, do you have a seat belt? Do you have, well, why do you use chromium? Actually, what's the breakage lane that you need? And consumers started to ask, except in Detroit, there was nobody to answer that question. There was no safety department in the car companies. And it was the race of the European car industry. Volvo emerged with the safety belt, the airbag. Well, and you know the story. Basically now, I have to say, probably Germans build the finest cars, and they are fast and safe. And that is a result of this. I think the next episode will go to the US again. Elon Musk has something to do with it, I believe. But it's a good lesson to learn. If you only do what your consumers ask, you might end up being unsafe at any speed. Now, what does that mean for the internet? So probably all of you do use the internet, I assume that, in one way or another. And I do really like the internet. I wouldn't like to live without it, and I guess it's impossible today to write something for the university without looking it up on Wikipedia or reading news or going to Facebook or whatsoever. The The problem with the internet is it's really nice looking, and it's Chromium, and it has a big engine, and it is free, and it's basically everything that the users want, except it's completely unsafe at any speed. And this is what we have to look at. And it all starts with search, and this is why we build browsers in search, because it's the main component of the internet. So if you look at search, and this is the German advertising market, digital advertising market, it's roughly 7 billion, that's quite a lot of money. You see that search takes around 51% of that market. That's a rocking 3.5 billion. In Germany, that's one company that takes it, it's Google. In Russia, you find Yandex and Google. In the US, you have Google and Bing. In China, you have Baidu. But the picture is roughly the same. The first player in the eco chain takes roughly half of the money. So if you're going to pitch to Holzbring Ventures with an advertising-based model, you're already on the 50% side of that wall. Now, how is this money being earned? It's basically very simply earned by you clicking on ads. That's the business model of the internet, and search is the most dominant business model that you can have. So when you look for a vacation in Hurghada, what you actually think you're seeing is search results, but what you actually get to see is these are all ads. And whenever you click, in case of an travel booking, it's probably €2 going from whoever booked the ad to Google. Now that's in itself not a real problem. That's actually how the internet is built, and that's a fine thing. But then a second secret sauce comes on top, and that's really not nice. And that's the difference between advertising that's data-driven and not data-driven. So a standard ad, if you see one, well, you're cool guys, so you see probably a Rolex or a Hyperloop ad somewhere, that earns around $5 per 1,000 impressions. So if this room looks at 3 ads, we've earned $5, assuming you have 300 people. It becomes completely different if you have search and data, because then you'll basically earn $50 for 1,000 impressions. That's nicer. That's really what you want. But the problem is, this is basically where the unsafe at any speed starts. And this is where you get really in trouble. Because if you can make a difference between $5 and $50, you'll basically create a very weird incentive. And that incentive is collect as much data as possible. How does that look like? We have roughly 1 million users, and last November we did a big study where we started measuring how does the web actually look like from a user perspective, but not the web you see, the web your browser sees, the web your smartphone sees, the things that are under the Chromium, so the things that actually nobody wants you to see. And that's slightly concerning. So first of all, you see that this is the German web. In standard, if you visit any website, be it Wikipedia, be it Google, be it Facebook or whatsoever, there are so-called trackers on the site. Trackers are third parties that get all your information that is on the site, including your information. If you measure the web, you see that, now comes the internet security guy, 5% of the web are what I call secure. You're actually in a bilateral communication with only that website. So when you go to that website, only the website and you will know about it. The rest, 95%, I'm an electrical engineer, that's 100%, basically has a tracker on it. It means not only Wikipedia, not only Facebook learns about you being on that site, you expressively sharing information, you expressively looking for information. It means all the other guys see it as well. And there's a couple of crazy ones, which I call out of control. It's 10 or more of these spies on the web page. And the problem with trackers is if you invite one, it's like a Facebook party. Everybody's allowed to come. And if you look at who has transparency about what you do, well, obviously Google, and that's well known, they see 60% of everything you do. That means even if you don't use their browser, even if you don't use their search, if you've never touched any Google website, they will still know 60% of what you do in the web. So 6 out of 10 web pages you see, they get all your data. And then it goes down. But these companies are really not the trouble, because these are all decent companies with solid funding. They have engineers that are really good, and they probably make sure your data is well protected. The real trouble starts if you look at the top 100 trackers. There's still some very solid companies on there that see a lot of your traffic. But there's also a set of companies you really don't want to deal with. My favorite is Double Pimp. It's under the top 100 trackers in Germany. The problem also is, if you ever have heard about cookie exchange and real-time bidding platforms, then these trackers start talking to each other, and they exchange all the information. It's basically, what do you know about him? Well, I know this, and let's exchange it. We can make a better marketing profile and sell a Tesla to him. This is what's happening in the background. Now, it doesn't stop at the web, and that's the problem with free products. If you, for example, like Slack, it's one of these hype platforms at the moment. It's basically a chat. If you use Slack, they use Google Analytics to monitor their traffic, which basically means Google can monitor theoretically everything that is happening in your Slack, everything. And it goes further if you, for example, open mails. Very often these mails use Google Analytics pixels to track whether the mail has been opened. Whenever you do that, bingo, they got you on it. And the important thing is there is no harm meant. Except for double pimp maybe. There's no real bad will of these companies. They just want to earn money. And most of them are very decent and they don't want to do anything bad with your profile. And most of the companies who put these trackers on the website, they don't want to do something bad with you and they don't think about it. And I can give you a very good example. The Cliqz website. We actually I'm an internet security expert according to Felix. We really don't want to have any trackers on our webpage, except we do have. Because what we did is we just loaded a Vimeo video, and I said it's a Facebook party, so Vimeo brought itself as a tracker because there's valuable data. Then it brought Google, and in theory that's just a lucky shot that it's only 3 trackers on this site. Whenever you include a free font, whenever you include a map, whatever you do in your page, you've basically lost control about the data of your user. This is sort of a problem, and the question is, why is nobody really addressing it? One is the consumers don't ask. The time is not ready. The consumers don't care. That's one. But the second thing is the system is completely corrupted. The problem is because 50% of the value chain worldwide are taken by a couple of players, they basically make the rules of everything that is ongoing. And those that try to challenge, like if you look DuckDuckGo, for example, it's the nice kid of how you do search. They actually use Bing. You can check that very easily technically. You're all technically. The problem is with that comes they also have to use the ads, which means they just have become part of the ecosystem. And it's not that easy to build a new search engine that is not funded by this ecosystem, which means the moment you do it, you basically play by these rules. And it gets even worse because it is such a highly profitable business. Everybody in the ecosystem will make sure that you stay in the ecosystem at all costs. So basically all the big search engines around the world pay all browsers. There's not a single browser in the world that is not paid by search engines to make sure that you stay in the system. It goes as far as your iOS device. I think the number just leaked. Google and Apple are having a real big fight about privacy and all this, which doesn't stop Apple to take $1 billion a year from Google to make sure that you can't select your search engine on the device, but you really use Google. And Google is not a bad company, it's a great company, but the problem is if you have a couple of players taking 60, 70, 80 billion out of the value chain and distributing it, the world will play to their rules. And their rules are, the more I know about you, the better for me. Now, except of a couple of people not being happy with that, like me, why should you care? You're probably too young to even think that privacy matters, and you share everything on Facebook, and it's just normal. We've grown up to it. It's what we want. We want free products, we want them fast, and we want to share our stuff, and that's okay. But I bet nobody of you has ever willingly opted into. Plus, I really like to be spied on completely and being on the marketplace to sell my data. And this is basically what you can do. Whenever you hear the word marketplace for pseudo profiles, people like me can go to the market and buy it. So the biggest one we got offered is 20 million Germans. That's quite a lot. And then you can start looking into this data and you can ask yourself, what does pseudo profile actually mean? It's anonymous, or? Well, let's have a look. First of all, the intuition of the most Germans is right. Nearly 3/4 of the Germans don't trust the internet anymore, and that's completely right. And I give you a demo why. So we went to the marketplace and we just bought a bit of data. It's completely anonymous. And the first one that I want to show you is a simple URL. It's MyFitnessPal. And I want to do a small quiz. Raise your arm if you think it's irresponsible of me to show this URL here. It's a public website. You can, I think, no longer, but you can. Nobody? One. That's good. Girls are usually smarter than boys. I have a second one. That's heilpraktiker.de. That's kind of a doctor, like with herbs. Raise your arm if you think it's irresponsible of me to show this website. Okay, I have a third one. KSK, MSE, and very long, looks funky. There's stuff in there. Dangerous? That's good, number one. Only one? Two? Okay, you should all raise your arm, really. This is the Kreissparkasse München-Starnberg-Ebersberg, so it's banking. And the part that is blacked out here, that's actually the account number. That's why fintech really deserves to be successful. They do this shit. They put the account numbers into, this is a public URL. It's something that's completely public, but this goes through the web, and people like me can buy it. Now, the real and unfortunate secret is all three URLs are pretty much the same in terms of their dangerous level. If you just add one tiny little note that fortunately every seller gives you on top, if you know that these three websites, which are totally harmless, have been clicked by the very same person, you will learn something. First of all, you will learn that that person has a profile called Little Vegan on MyFitnessPal. So, and it's 88, could be her birthday. She's visiting Heilpraktiker, but she's not necessarily visiting Heilpraktiker. She's visiting some administrator page, which means she probably has some sort of access to it. She either is the working student there doing the website, she might work as a web agency. She has some sort of relation to it, and she probably comes from the Munich area because she has a bank account here plus her bank number. And this is all public information, it's completely legal, and you can buy it. This is what is called, whenever you click on OK, I accept pseudo profiles. It's that girl, and you'll simply find her by Googling in these three data points. Every one of us is extremely transparent in the internet. And whenever you learn that, but it's just an anonymous data point, there are guys out there like me who make them not anonymous anymore. And the complete principle of targeted advertising is to not be anonymous. It is about to target you. And I want to give you a bit more real example. Some of you might know, you don't have to raise your arm. Some of you might know Ashley Madison. It's a dating site for people who want to date but already have a partner. It's not necessarily something that you want to share publicly. It's not necessarily something that you go out with. This webpage was hacked around a year ago, and all the profile information was put public, which is really not nice if you have a profile. Plus, it had 95% men and 5% women, so don't register with them. It's not a good business model. The real problem with this is, when you register with such a website, you do expect the website to have a database, and it might happen that they get hacked. The real scandal is they don't need to get hacked to leak this information, because if you visit it with a tool that shows you who's tracking it, you see that two companies, New Relic and Google Analytics, actually, this is while you fill out the profile. They get all your information already when you fill it out. And then they start think about cookie exchanging this information. And there are worse things. If you go to Gute Frage, a really good page, and you hepatitis C. So just imagine we all go out now afterwards in the lobby, and I introduce myself, I'm Marc, I have hepatitis C. It's just not common. It's just not common. You don't introduce yourself with an illness that you have. It's not normal talk, except in the internet you do. So if you inform yourself about an illness, on this page, you see we've removed 168 personal data points about you that went to, well, I can't count it. It's a lot of companies who've just learned it. And if you still think, well, but they don't have my name because it's just a random number of URLs I've visited. Latest, when you, like me, check my Twitter account, you'll find that there is Google Analytics, DoubleClick, and Google on there. And latest now, they do have all my information because the URL looks different for me than it would look for you when you visit my webpage, because I'm logged in. And that information has just triggered. I've just visited 4 webpages, and they've learned about me that first of all, I have a sexual disease. Second, I'm cheating on my wife. And the third one, I actually already forgot. Now, what we're living in in the internet is the very early times. People usually want to tell us, oh, it's all done, it's all set, the rules are made. It's not. It's just 20 years. It's the very beginning of an industry. And the industry has done what an industry does in the very beginnings. It has grown at all costs and without looking at any of the effects happening around it. But we've learned from history, be it smoking, be it coal mines, be it cars that are not safe. Eventually consumers do change and they do ask the question of what needs to be changed. And when that happens, usually industries adapt, at least in the Western countries. And I believe that we will see in the next 10 years that the world will change and the internet will have more respect for us as a user. Now, I don't know whether it's Cliqz who's going to change it, and I don't know who it will be, and it requires a lot of funding and a lot of people and a lot of competing companies to come up with new concepts, new business models, smarter ideas how to make it safer and better. But you're smart guys, you have technology background, you want to do management, it's a huge, huge, huge market. And if you want to stop the internet from being unsafe at any speed, there's a huge bet to make. And it has two big benefits. You'll actually make the internet a much, much better place. I guess none of us would like to drive around in a cover anymore, and none of us wants to smoke while pregnant. This used to be normal 50 years ago. Now let's change the internet to make it a really safe place. Plus, I know doing good is nice. It's a billion market. The one who solves that, who finds a good business model, the one who really returns the principle from we're not collecting everything, but we have the user decide on what he shares and what he's not sharing, will create the next billion-dollar company. And nothing prevents us in Europe to do so. With that, thanks a lot.